Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. All right. Welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. And I'm excited because I think I'm just going to approach this as a client. We were already doing this, but I'm excited about this conversation because I think a lot of people find themselves stuck as their business grows and they feel like they've outgrown their brand, but they don't know what to do, or they're moving from a personal brand to a business brand, or a business brand to a personal brand, right? We're always changing. We're always iterating. The world's always changing. The market is changing. So, and I try to say niche for now, and these aren't forever decisions. And yet you can feel trapped by the brand that you've established. So before we get into all that, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Erin, so good to be with you today. My name is Rachel Gogos, and I own an agency called brandiD. At brandiD, we help people build their personal and their business brands. It's actually the exact same methodology and strategies used to do both, right? And in doing so, one of the most common things that we implement are websites. So we build a lot of websites in WordPress. We work on that platform primarily. And we do membership sites and courses and just thought leader websites, book websites, you name it, any type of WordPress website we can build. We do custom design, and we also have themes that really help enhance your personal brand. And we also then, for our clients that we establish their brand foundation and start building an online presence for, we also do content marketing for them. So we ghostwrite for them for their social posts or blogs, newsletters, that type of content. And we also have about a year ago started podcast production. So another great way to build a personal brand and a following, or a business brand, right? But as a podcast host, I have my own podcast called The Business of You, but it's just another great way to put your thought leadership out there and build your business.
Love it, because I know it gets hard. I think first of all, I think too many people have the wrong definition of a brand, right? It's not just colors, even though colors play into it. But let's use me as an example, because I don't think this is unique to me. My business is 5 years old. This is the second or third iteration of my website, but it truthfully is no longer serving where I want to go. The feel of the brand no longer is serving where I want to go. And yet it feels like if I just did hard stop, hard start, that I'm starting over, right? Which doesn't feel good, right? It makes you a little nervous. So what do you tell people to do when they're ready for their next iteration?
First, we take a deep dive strategically, right? What is your next iteration? What are your goals 3 to 5 years from now? Where do you want to be? In your case, you're working on a book. That's going to be a new offer. You're already a speaker, but once the book comes out, then you have a whole new calling card and a way to express your brand and your content. And that's going to be a great opportunity to land new speaking gigs, or even go back to old speaking clients and share the new content with them. But again, first you really got to, I call it setting your GPS, right? Where do you want to go? And then we look at where you are and where you have been and find a way to mesh things together. Because whenever we're creating a website for someone, we really want it to last 3 to 5 years, right? Unless you're a design agency of some sort, then you might need to change things up a little bit more frequently. But anybody else, there's really no reason, as long as what you're offering stays pretty consistent, needs to change any more frequently than 3 to 5 years.
But at the same time, to me, even if what you're doing hasn't changed, the market has changed, the world has changed, vocabulary has changed. So even if for those people out there who aren't changing what they're doing, refreshing your language of how you talk about what you're doing, I think is important. It always reminds me, you can tell when you look at a website and it hasn't been updated. It's like driving around and you see the sign for houses for sale and there's a picture of the realtor and you're
Hmm.
like, I know her and she doesn't look like that anymore, like by 30 years,
Right,
right?
totally. No, refreshes are great here and there. And that's what I love about websites is it's so
Yeah.
easy to change your copy. It can be anytime, or when you get a new result for a client, or if a client expresses what you've done for them in a way that you haven't heard it before, great to get that testimonial up, or again, like tweak your language. So there's no hard and fast rule against that. I'm notorious for always tweaking our web copy.
Me too. I play with it all the time. So I love the going back to what we were talking about, like your next iteration. I love one of the things you said and why it's so aligned with what I talk about is number one, it's strategy first, and number two,
Mhm.
it's reverse engineered.
So true. It has to be, right? Because otherwise it's like trying to hit a dartboard. If you don't have
There's
that
not a dartboard
established,
hanging there, right?
well, if
Like
you
you're
don't
just
have it established, how are
right,
you
you're
going to
just
get
throwing
there?
crap at the wall,
Right,
literally.
right,
Literally.
exactly. And I'm also a big fan of assessing your competition, but not from a place of, oh, that's my competition and I'm worried about it, but more from a place to help you differentiate. Again, like using your own language or putting things in your own genuine language, you're putting your personal interests in. Those are all things that differentiate you and help you stand out. And I personally believe there's plenty of business for everybody in the world. So again, I use the word competition loosely, but just getting a sense of what else is out there and off who else is out there offering similar services to what you are can also help you dial into your own target audience.
Well, and I
Back to
think
the
it's
reverse engineering piece there, right?
right. And I also think it's easier to edit than create. So sometimes it's helpful to go look at what else is out there, whether it's in, even if it's in other industries, so
Mm-hmm.
that you can see this is what I like and this is what I don't like.
Yeah,
This is what
yeah,
resonates, this is what doesn't resonate. And it's easier to find your path that way than
yeah,
staring, for those of us who are not artistic by nature, staring at a blank page,
yes,
I will have zero ideas.
right. Yeah, definitely. In fact, just today I was talking to a mentor of mine. I was telling him about this new coffee e-commerce brand that we're really shaking up. They've been around for over 100 years. Their website's over 10 years old, and it's still family owned and operated. They're fourth generation. And this friend of mine who's always also like very active in the personal brand world said, you got to check out this website. They're in the West Village. They're the oldest apothecary in the United States. Similar story, family owned, and they redid their e-commerce site some years back, and now they're like this global brand. So really check them out. And again, like comparing to other industries is super helpful because e-commerce is e-commerce, right?
Right.
If you're talking about how to help companies grow and scale, there's lots of people talking about that. Or there's other industries that can be applicable to, right? Growth and scale. Could be software, could be a number
Well,
of
it
things.
also helps you not look the same as everybody else.
Yes.
I said that when I was in corporate, when I was a department of one for a very long time in my corporate role. And when we grew and I was hiring an assistant, I remember the CEO kept sending people my way to consider hiring for my brand new department that I was growing. And I kept saying no. And he was willing to give me enough rope to hang myself with, as he used to like to say, but I don't want somebody else's old problems.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hire someone who had been in our industry for so long that they ever came to me with, that's just how this works as an
Hmm.
answer.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you can get such great ideas from other industries.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing you and I were talking about before we hit record, something I think you wanted to touch on a little bit in this discussion is like personal brand or business brand
Yes.
and how to mesh the two. And in your case, you have both, right? You have Conquer Your Business, but you're also really well known as Erin Marcus out there. So I'm a big fan of having as few web properties is you need to own, because they require maintenance just like a real house. But ideally, if you can own both domains, your vanity URL, like erinmarcus.com, and your business brand, if you want a business brand, own both of those and have them point to the same website. You can have your vanity URL point to your about page if you're projecting a business brand. If you're at a place where you're projecting your personal brand, and I think those are more thought leadership brands that you're not necessarily growing to sell ever, a company under your vanity URL. Under a business brand, if your aspiration is to grow a company and eventually sell it, then I would highly recommend doing that under a business brand, but you can still use your personal brand to grow and scale that, because ultimately when you're marketing, people want to hear from people. They don't want to hear from a business. And I've seen that even in my own business, because I have a business brand, but most people aren't responding to brandiD's Facebook comments, but they
Right.
are responding to Rachel Gogos's Facebook comments. So no matter how big your business, I also really recommend building your social and doing a lot of your marketing as the human that you are. If you're the face of your brand, your business brand, build it under your personal brand, at least be the voice of it, even if
Be
it's
the
a
voice.
company page.
I
Mhm.
totally agree with you. And one of the things you said that I didn't even realize, I didn't even think of this because to me, not knowing a lot of the tech stuff, one website can point to another website. I got that
Mhm.
covered. But it just didn't even occur to me that I could take a personal URL and have it point to the about
Mhm.
page, or in my case, to a speaker page
Exactly.
on
Mhm.
my, if people, once they're there, they'll search around. People know how to do that. But
Right.
now it makes a lot more sense when if someone's searching for me
Mhm.
to land on the about page
Or to your, right, or the
or a
speaking
speaker.
page or whatever. Yeah, you have to think about, again, going back to that strategy first piece, right? Like, how do you want to make your money? Do you want to make it as a speaker? Do you want to make it as a course seller? Do you want to make it as a service provider? And that, though, that's what you should market the most, then that's what you should speak about the most publicly, and point people directly to where they need to be on your website to learn more about that thing. Again, the thing you want to monetize most, to make it easy for them, right? People have a very short attention span today. Content is coming at them a million miles a minute. And so you want to be considering how user-friendly you can be in everything you share, and make it very easy for people to find what they need to take the next step towards transacting with you.
So going to this idea of content coming at us a million miles an hour
Yeah.
from every direction, let's get into that piece of what you do for a little bit. So personally, I killed my business pages. I put them on archived or whatever. They're just off for right now. Because to your point, I'm now growing my personal brand more,
Mhm.
and that's where people wanted to interact with me. Anyway, how do you differentiate? Like one of the things I know in my world is I can do videos and we can be really good about turning it into newsletters, and that turns into curated content, and we use the pictures and everything, and nobody cares. Nobody
Mhm.
cares. But I can post a picture of me cleaning up the cages at Wings and Talons and the owl giving me dirty looks while I'm doing it. Like, how do you help somebody navigate? What do they need to know about combining the business outcome they're trying to create and the fact that social media's first word is social, right?
Mhm. Mhm. It's connecting the dots, right? And the posts that you make. So you mentioned earlier, again, before we were recording, about some posts you've made about a woodpecker and food, and tying it into a business lesson for your ideal audience, right? Again, like that picture is going to get the most attraction. It's going to get the most, because it's, I think honestly, I hate the word authenticity because it's so overused, but that really is what attracts people. It really gets them to pause. And also, it's a showstopper in the sense it's, oh, nature and Erin and what's she doing and what she's saying, or, and so they'll pause for a second. but you have to connect the dots for clients in terms of what you're trying to communicate in the lesson you're trying to share with them. So you don't want to make people work too hard because their brain's onto the next thing
Yeah.
before they even finish reading what you've written in a post. And I'm also a big fan of just keeping things very simple and keeping things tight. I see these long posts on social, and I even find myself, I'll read through a couple paragraphs or kind of
Yeah,
skip them,
I
and then I'm on to the next thing. Just bite-sized content, enough to get your story out or the lesson you want to share, keeping things simple and trying to get engagement. So getting people to comment. If you end with the question mark,
mhm.
that also triggers the brain that a response is warranted here. So just,
And
a few little tips there.
it's interesting to me. One of the things somebody pointed out to me, and it turned out to be so true, people will like your posts, but if you don't give them a next step to take, they won't do anything except
Yes.
like your posts. We think that if you loved what I had to say, you would reach out to me about how I could help you. But that's not actually true.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
We would love to believe we're all smarter than that, but that's not the way our habits are in the moment.
Yeah.
People follow the direction you give.
Yeah, it's so true, Erin. I'm glad you brought that up because you do need to give that step-by-step direction. Tell people the next step. Again, keep it very simple and very easy for them to take that next step and just walk them up to the door of,
Right? And invite them
this
in,
is the
right?
next step. Yeah, people want to be invited. They want to feel welcomed in. And the more you can do that too.
That's a really good point. People want to feel welcomed in, they want to feel invited. What they
Hmm.
don't want to feel is chased and pitched to. And I get it. It can be hard because I'm not a natural on social media. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, a complete juvenile delinquent in the city of Chicago. I spent 20 years making sure nobody knew what I was doing. Okay. Like it's very weird to me to tell the world what I'm doing. It that's not, it used to be when there was a family funeral, one person always had to stay back at the house because the obituaries were always
Right.
in the paper and
Yeah.
it basically announced that everyone would be gone. So I grew up in a world with a Chicago cop as a father where somebody had to stay at the house to make sure nobody broke in while the rest of the family was at the event. So it's very weird to me to put my whole life out there.
Hmm.
And yet, so one of the things I did wrong in the beginning was thinking that everyone just wanted to know about my business. So when I had something to offer, that was the only time I showed up.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
what I've since learned is if the only time you show up is to pitch, no, nobody's connecting with you, and that's
Right.
the fastest way to get ignored.
Yeah. I you and I have a mentor in common, right? Which is Kelly Roach.
Mhm.
And I love her conviction marketing methodology, which is so simple and straightforward.
Yeah.
It's putting educational content out there, putting inspirational content out there, and conviction-based content, right? Like your beliefs, your things that you're passionate about. In your case, it's the animals in the wild, the birds in the wild, right? And mixing that content up. So it's not always like pitch. And you've been around long enough to know that you really got to put your best content out there. That's what attracts people. And what people pay for is the organization of content. If you're putting a course out there, they're
Yeah.
paying for implementation because they don't want to do implementation. Their skills are in other areas or they don't have the time. That's what people pay for. So,
That was one of the first things I learned when I entered this world through a different mentor. And she just said, don't be scared to give away your best stuff.
mhm.
And it's so true.
Absolutely, because people will pay for the services piece of it.
Right. Like I know it doesn't matter how much great stuff I put out there. The secret sauce is when I'm able to work with you to implement on those teachings.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
right as opposed to watching a video. So I can put my best content out there and not worry about it,
Yeah. We ha
not harming sales.
No, not at all. We have one of our taglines is you're the biggest differentiator to your business.
Yes.
And so the more you put yourself out there, the more your people want to hire you to work with you to do the thing that you say you do when people get to know and trust you. And that's the other thing to be mindful of is like the content that you're putting out there is really giving people exposure to who you really are, building a relationship with them, and them establishing trust through being consistent. That consistency piece is also extremely important. You have to show up and be saying the same things over and over.
That was hard for me to. I have a journalism degree. I was literally trained that
Yeah,
once you said it, it was no longer relevant.
same. Yep.
That was a hard lesson for me to learn. I originally I was freaking out, like, how am I supposed to keep coming up with new stuff? And then I was freaking out, go, how can I keep saying the same stuff? Right?
Yeah.
Like, but
Yeah.
that's how it works. Because
Yeah.
nobody's, here's the other thing, nobody's paying attention until they need to pay attention.
That, and again, back to the whole too much coming at them and the overwhelm. People need to see things 7 or 8 times before it actually sticks.
Yeah. And so while we're all worried we're bothering people and repeating ourselves, they aren't even aware of us yet.
Correct. Correct.
Amazing
Yes.
any of us get anywhere, truthfully. I really cut. I see we're so up. I have so much empathy for people in this playing in this space and trying to do things because we are so up against neuroscience.
Mm-hmm.
We are
Mm-hmm.
so up against everything, putting ourselves out there and the way that our brains work and what we want to have happen versus what we have to do to get it there. And I just think it's absolutely invaluable to have people who can pave the way for you a little bit, make it a little bit easier, shorten your learning curve, right?
Oh, through mentors and
Mentors, but even like the services like what you offer versus the
Mhm.
services like
Oh
other
yeah,
specialists out there. Don't bang your head against the wall. There's people who
right.
actually know how to do this.
Yeah, and ultimately can save you a lot of money in the long run. Sometimes you feel like, ooh, that's a big investment, but the key word is investment,
And
right?
yeah,
Like you're not throwing your money away. You're investing in giving yourself time and having things done at an expert level, right?
100%, 100%. You can't, I used to tell when I used to train financial advisors, if you're going to help people make more money, you have to look like you have at least a little bit of it. So if you're trying to scale and grow your business and all of your stuff looks DIY patchwork together,
Right.
it doesn't matter what you say, people's brains are going to think there's something wrong.
Yep. That's part of building a brand to come full circle. That was your first point. Branding is not just colors and fonts, but it's actually creating the experience before they hire you to be a customer or a client. And in our case, I'm always preaching about these websites, but they're so important. They're not just these transactional things. They're things that people go to learn more about you when you're referred, even by a third party, or if you come up on a Google search. But you want to be thinking that customer experience that you offer, wealth manager, dentist, whatever you are, it starts on the website.
And done properly, marketing makes sales conversations really easy,
So true.
right?
Especially when you're reacting to them, right? If
Right.
someone
By
comes
the
to you.
time you're talking to somebody, it's what allows it to be just a confirmation conversation. Nobody.
Absolutely.
So if people want to dive into this deeper with you, what is the best way for them to find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, just under Rachel Gogos. And if you're interested in our services, check out thebrandid.com. And there's a contact form on there. You can fill that out. That comes to me and a few other people on my team, and would be happy to hop on a discovery call with you.
Awesome. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I love chatting with you. I know we could go on
Same.
forever and ever and ever. It's more marketing nerds. Yay, marketing nerds. So yeah. So thank you so much for your time and your energy and your insights. And I know people got some really good nuggets out of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Great to see you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I truly enjoy bringing these stories of success and inspiration to you. Please join us in our mission to empower entrepreneurs to be in charge of their businesses and in charge of their lives by sharing this with anyone you know who would benefit from our tactical and motivating advice, leaving us a review, and letting us know if there are any particular topics you would really appreciate hearing about. See you next time.